Some of you seem as worried as ever about the Milwaukee Brewers, and I cannot lie, man. This team is just struggling right now. Still 13 games over the 500 mark. They're very lucky that some of the other teams in the National League also finding it difficult to win games these days. We'll get to all this coming up next on Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And good to have you along. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Great to have you with me to join the week, to start the week here. Longtime sportscaster here in the state of Wisconsin and a very proud host of Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. This show is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedon MLB and use that all lowercase for Locked On MLB and your first deposit match up to $100 on PrizePicks. You know, I think ever since like in April, you look on Twitter, and not like Twitter's the ultimate gauge, but I mean like sports talk around the state, people coming after me. I think anytime the Brewers go through a little bit of a slide, it's like, oh boy, here it comes. We're just like waiting for that shoe to drop. And you know what? Since July 4th, the 4th of July weekend, the Brewers have dropped 6 of their last 8 series. 6 of their last 8 series. That doesn't bode well at all. Still, here they are, 13 games under the 500 mark, despite having lost 6 of their last 8 series. They're 5.5 up on St. Louis, 6 up on Pittsburgh, the Cubs 8.5 out, Cincinnati 9 out. As you know, I don't really look at Pittsburgh, the Cubs, and Cincinnati all too much. I look at this as a 2-team race, and I'll take it one step further. I think the Brewers have an opportunity. Okay, I don't think it's a great opportunity by watching the ball this weekend, but an opportunity to catch the Dodgers and the Phillies. You look at the Phillies. The Phillies have lost 8 of 10. They're struggling. Okay, they salvaged the final game in Seattle this past weekend. The Dodgers didn't look great at all. They've lost. They're over the last 10 games. They're 4-6. Dodgers have got some injuries. They're getting Mookie Betts back, and yeah, it looks like help is on the way for the Dodgers. So this is an opportunity right now for the Brewers to take advantage of all this. If we want them to get that second seed, crying out loud, if we want them to close out this division, yeah, they've 6 of the last 8 series. That's a bad trend right now. And I think what it is with the Brewers, they really miss Christian Yelich. They miss that bat in the middle lineup. You look without Yelich in that lineup, then everybody's got to drop a spot. Whether you got Contreras moving to the 3-hole. And let's face it, guys, we love Gary Sanchez. Some of you don't, but we love our Gary Sanchez, who homered on Sunday. But, I mean, don't you do a big eye roll when you see Gary Sanchez batting in the 3-hole and his .226 average? Sure, Sanchez can go Yahtzee like he did on Sunday. But Gary Sanchez, in what world should Gary Sanchez, especially on a pennant contender, a first-place team, should Gary Sanchez be batting in the 3-hole? I don't get that. That's happened a couple of times. Bowers was batting in the 3-hole last week. But, my goodness. And this is where, you know, we talked about, I saw this on Facebook, on a Facebook board the other day. Boy, the Brewers should have gone out and got themselves some more pitching when the trading deadline popped up. More pitching. Okay. They scored 8 runs on Friday. We'll take that. 4 runs on Saturday. All right. 3 runs on Sunday. 3 runs late. They were on their way to getting shut out in that game, but they scored 3 runs in the 8th inning. This team needs offense. Some of these guys on this team, Ortiz, okay, I know he's a young guy, and we all loved Ortiz all season long, but he's in a massive slump. Massive slump. You know, there's other guys in this team without Yelich in this lineup. Got to pick it up. Ortiz has got to be one of those guys. We're going to play him every day, and we're touting him for being an all-star, okay? He has not been all-star worthy since like the end of June, maybe even further back than that. All right? Durang bounces into a double play to end the game. And it's like, my gosh, lost 2 of 3 again. And not even looking good in the process. You know, I look like this team is just dead tired right now. Like they need a week off. We thought the All-Star break they'd come out refreshed, and they did. They beat Minnesota, and then they beat the Cubs 2-3. That's the only series that they've won since the 4th of July weekend. And then they come back in Atlanta. You know, after winning the first game of that series, looked terrible. Washington, they've been beaten twice. They've been beaten in 2 series by them. The Nationals have taken 4 of 6 against the Brewers since the 4th of July weekend. So I know that some of that's going to happen against these bad teams. You're going to lose against some of these bad teams. But yeah, it is trending the wrong way for the Milwaukee Brewers. And Murphy's trying to pull these guys out of it. He is. 13 games over. Now, let's face it. 13 games over in a bad division. The Brewers are very thankful that nobody else has really stepped up to the plate. All right, the 1st of July, they went into the the 1st of July, 6.5 up. Here they're 5.5 up, and they've lost 6 of their last 8 series. Still, they've only lost a game in the standings, and they're still 5.5 up on St. Louis. That's how bad everybody else is. Now, I don't look at it that way. I can't still look at it and say, boy, at least, the Brewers are still 5.5 out. Yeah, I guess you can, but I'm looking at, I'm trying to get better as a baseball team. Forget everybody else for a second, okay? They got to start playing some better ball, all right? They've been meandering for the last 5 weeks, I feel. Got to turn this around, and I don't know if they're a tired team or if all these injuries are catching up to them or what. I thought Tobias Myers came out, gave him a great ball game through 5 innings on Sunday. And I thought Murphy a little overmanaged, maybe going on a hunch again. And he did this last week when he didn't pinch hit for Monasterio. He took Myers out of the game, went to his bullpen, and the rest is history. Milner gave up a 3 spot in the 6th inning, and there went the ball game right there. But I don't know if the Brewers would have come back and won this game anyway. Yeah, they scored 3 runs in the 8th inning, but still it was trending in a bad direction because the offense just looked putrid. And it's looked at, and there are sometimes these guys just cannot get out of their own way offensively, and it's painful to watch. But we know that this is the way it's going to be with these guys. But man, I expect a little more out of the. I think Ortiz is in a slump. A few of these other guys in this lineup have got to pick it up for Yelich. All right, we're gonna have to live with Hoskins at his .226 batting average. All right, and Sanchez, but I don't want Sanchez batting third in my lineup. In no world do I want Sanchez batting third. Contreras, okay, I'd rather have him in the 2 hole, but he's forced to go to the 3 hole because there's no big bat there, and he's now down to 279 on the season. Yeah, a little concerning. I would say this is the most concerned I've been about the Brewers in a long time this season. There's a couple of other times this year, again, never more than a 3-game skid where I've looked at this team and maybe they'll bounce back this week. They really do need to against Atlanta. They have an off day on Monday, and then they got 3 games with Atlanta, and then the Reds coming into town. The Reds have been up and down, mostly down. But, if this thing continues to trend in this direction, okay, yeah, it is going to be a fight for the division title. And I've said this last week. I think the opportunity is there to catch the Dodgers and Phillies. It is there. Okay. Is this team good enough? Well, this team wasn't good enough by anybody to win the division anyway. But, 13 games over, they're better than ever. I still think they're the best team in the division. I do. I think they're better than St. Louis. I've seen St. Louis play. The Brewers are better than them. The Brewers, now, are they better than the Phillies and the Dodgers? Not necessarily. No, those two have better teams than the Brewers. Okay. The Atlanta Braves are better than the Brewers. Okay. I'll say those 3 teams right there, right now, are better than the Brewers. The Braves are getting hot again, but they're not catching the Phillies, who are in a massive slump. And like I said, they did win on Sunday. But the Brewers, hey, you don't know, in baseball, you don't always have to be the best team to have the second or first record in baseball. You can still get by. The Brewers can somehow get that second, second best record, or maybe the top record. Phillies they're 4 games behind Phillies in the loss column. I don't completely count that out with all the way that everybody is struggling. Well, there's a couple of teams that are playing well. Arizona's playing well. San Diego's playing well. There's a few teams out there. The Mets were playing well, and then they ran into the Angels this weekend and had a bad weekend. But yes, this team is looking tired. They got to bounce back this week against Atlanta and find it, man. I thought after Friday's game against Washington, I thought, all right, they've turned this thing around. They're going to be okay. Savali, I thought, put him in an early hole on. He did. He put him in a early hole on Saturday and was not good. Savali was not good on the mound. And he has not got a win in any of his starts so far. He's got no wins to show for it so far. The team has won, but he's got no victories so far. I don't know. I just think that it is trending in a tough position right now. Got to score some runs. Tired of the Brewers going into the 6th or 7th inning scoreless. All right, and you can just feel it. The one time, 2 times through the order, you say, "Oh boy, this is going in the wrong direction." Although last Monday against the Braves, they surprised me because it was going in a bad direction, and all of a sudden the bats got hot in the middle innings and turned that game around. But hey, let's be thankful. Brewers are still in first place. We can, but hey, the Brewers we as Brewer fans need to worry about this team and get this team because it's not trending the right way. You lose 6 of your last 8 series. That's a bad direction for a first place team to go. Hard to believe, again, you're in that kind of a slump, yet you're still 5.5 up. But again, we're trying to catch other teams, and we're trying to get better for the postseason too. Don't want to just get in there a couple of games over the 500 mark, waltz into the playoffs, and then be fodder for somebody. We don't need that. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Get us on Google, Spotify, Apple. We're on all the major downloads. Wherever you download your podcast, we are there. All the major downloads, audio. Please subscribe. We're free wherever you download your podcast. Hit the subscribe button, and that'll alert you every time we drop an episode, usually in the middle of the night. And, of course, our growing YouTube page. Search Locked On Brewers. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell. That'll alert you every time we drop an episode on Locked On Brewers. Also, hit me up on Twitter account, Chuck Freeman, FREIMUND. Somebody, Charlie Darwin, asked me to talk more about The Miz in the next episode or two. We're going to get to him. We'll talk more about The Miz coming up here this week. Possibly Tuesday night's episode. We'll talk more about Jacob Mizorowski, a fast riser who I think is going to be on this team in September. This show is brought to you, or I want to say this first of all. When we come back, we're going to talk about that dreaded 3-hole with the Brewers. What should they do with that 3-hole? It's right now, it's a big production spot, but it's not doing well. We'll get to that next here on Locked On Brewers. Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Man, if wherever you are in the country, man, we are, Wisconsin included, man, it was a hot one out there this week. This is a great weekend for, going outside, but, being inside in the air conditioning, quite frankly, and watching the Brewers play is not a bad option. I know people like to say, well, geez, it's bad weather outside, or it's hot weather outside, or we have this nice warm weather. We only get it for like 6 weeks a year. Let's enjoy it. When it's really hot outside, I don't know. Any option is a good option to get away from the heat. And you talk about your favorite cold treats, you ought to dip into the Liquid Force Popsicle Firecracker flavor. And you know what? Putting calories in your body, putting good food in your body always should be important. Hydrating during the summertime, very, very important. And you get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, nutrients from the #1 powdered hydration brand in America. Baseball and summer go together like Liquid 4 and Indulgent Hydration. This has got all the electrolytes you need and the vitamins, powered by Hydroscience that is second to none. They've tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration, 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink. 8 essential vitamins and nutrients. So go to liquid4.com. Use the promo code MLB. This is not your ordinary popsicle. This stuff, this firecracker flavor, is good for your body and good for your soul. And when you're watching the game, you're getting outside from doing the lawn or whatever you're doing outside, working up a sweat, maybe golfing. You need that hydration. You need to get that nutrients. You need to get those vitamins in your body. Go to liquid4.com. Use the promo code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop better hydration today using the promo code MLB at liquid4.com. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. And we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. The Brewers do have the day off on Monday. Get back at it on Tuesday with the first of 3 in Atlanta. Just saw the Braves last week, but here we go. The Braves again, because you see them only 6 times a year, 3 here and 3 there. And the Brewers will play the Braves coming up on Tuesday night, 2 night games, and then Thursday on the getaway day at AmFam in Atlanta. And I'm trying to find the starting time. I did have that. My phone went dark for a second. 6:20 with the broadcast time on SiriusXM, the SXM app. Search Brewers. Get the home team broadcast, all 162 of Brewers games. I got to admit, though, I went over to the Atlanta Braves side last week on my way to the ballpark. I got to the ballpark like the second inning, so I was listening to the Braves broadcast. Our buddy Jim Powell's not on the Braves broadcast anymore. I don't know what's going on there. The former Brewers broadcaster. I know that he retired or something. He's not on the broadcast this year. The broadcasters they had on there are good. And they were talking about how bad the chicken fingers were at AmFam Field. I never had the chicken fingers, but one of the guys in the broadcast booth was talking about how the chicken fingers, he goes to each ballpark and he orders the chicken fingers, and he gave the chicken fingers at AmFam Field a 2. Yeah, I got to admit, going to the ballpark and getting chicken fingers isn't my first ideal. It's the hot dogs or the brats, maybe the nachos, not the chicken fingers. But this guy in the Braves broadcast on Monday night said 2. He gave the Brewers a 2. A 2. How about that? Well, we're going to talk about the 3-hole coming up. The 3-hole coming up. The 3-hole is not very good for the Milwaukee Brewers. And like I said, Sanchez in there, Contreras, Bowers. I don't know. Sometimes we see in the 3-hole, we've seen Rhys Hoskins. But this is where I wanted the Brewers to go out and get themselves a bat. This is where I wanted them to go out and get themselves a bat. Because I think if they got themselves a bat, they went out and got themselves some pitching. But if they go out and got themselves a bat, maybe we don't worry about this. There was bats to be had out there at the trading deadline. Yet we're sticking a 228 hitter, Gary Sanchez, in that 3-hole. The Brewers do not have a viable option for that 3-hole. You can't bat Jackson Chourio twice. Jackson Chourio is holding his own lately. All right. There's only a couple of guys right now, when they go to the plate for the Brewers, that I feel good about. Jackson Chourio, since June, I feel great about him. William Contreras, although he's not as the April or May Contreras we saw, still feel good with him at the plate. Okay. Mitchell's coming around. Mitchell had a couple of hits. All right. After struggling, you all wanted to trade, not all of you, but some of you wanted to trade Mitchell at the trading deadline. And maybe they tried to, when you say, hey, we should have traded Mitchell, maybe they tried to trade Mitchell at the trading deadline and there were no takers. Ortiz, he's bad at the 3-hole, but he's not a 3-hole guy, especially the way he is now. The Brewers on this team do not have a 3. Chourio and Contreras, the only guys you feel good about coming to the plate these days. Right? I mean, especially Chourio. Chourio's the best offense. Chourio's their best offensive player. 20-year-old kid. We didn't know for sure he was going to be on the team. And he signed that contract, and that kind of probably pretty sure guaranteed him on the team. But 2 guys you can only count on. If I'm trying to win a World Series here, I got to be able to count on more than 2 guys. The Brewers really missed the boat on not getting another bat. We talked about pitching. Murph had too much confidence in his bullpen on Sunday. I know the bullpen has been good, slipped as of late. You know, they're down a couple of arms out there with McGill and Hudson. But Milner not having the season he's had in the last few with the Brewers. I don't know why Myers didn't come back and pitch one more inning. Could have got him. They were afraid to bring him back for I think with Myers, they were going to get him out when the going was good. You know, like when you get out when the going is good on anything. Well, you know, whether you're at the casino or whatever, you get out when the going is good, when you're up. I think they were getting out with Myers, and they thought comfortable turning it over the bullpen with the day off coming up on Tuesday. And again, look, that may have not have lost. I mean, it did on paper lost him a game because Milner gave up 3 runs. But my gosh, this team needs offense. And when there's only 2 guys in this lineup that you really can count on with Chourio and Contreras, all right, and one of them is a 20-year-old kid who I'm just letting going out and play. I'm getting whatever. We said this at the beginning of the season. And even like a veteran like Christian Yelich said this. With Chourio, just let him play. Let him go make his mistakes. Let him do what he's got to do. But now we're actually counting on Chourio to provide big offense on this team. And they've moved him around the order. Wherever they move him around the order, he has just been great. Okay, just been great. So, but, you know, the other guys around him, just not so much as of late. Not so much. Terang, few others, just offensively, maybe they're not good enough to turn it around. I don't know. I don't want to go down that negative road just now. But still, more times than not this year, it's been the offense that's been a struggle. And we went out and talked about pitching, get this guy, get this pitcher. Why aren't they going after Crochet? Jack Flaherty. Oh, yeah, and it was painful seeing him going to the Dodgers. But at the end of the day, they needed a bat in the middle of this lineup. With Contreras, with or without the injury to Yelich, they needed another bat in the middle of this lineup. And Yelich went out, and they didn't get another bat. That, I'm telling you, mark my words on that. At the end of the season, if this doesn't go in the direction that we hope, we'll be looking back and saying, why don't we get a bat at the trading deadline? Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. When we come back, we are going to take a look at the Brave series. That's next here on Locked On Brewers. Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. PrizePicks, telling about them a little while earlier in the show here. They're a sponsor of this show, and they're the number 1 daily fantasy sports app. Over 5 million active members. PrizePicks, the easiest, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, PrizePicks is just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch those winnings roll right in. Get in on all the daily action with your friends. Become part of PrizePicks community today. You can turn a $10 into $1,000. You could win up to 10 times, 100 times your money. You bet $10, you turn it into $1,000. Watch Team USA rack up gold in many sports, and pick player stats more or less. Any sport you want. Daily fantasy sports is where you can download the PrizePicks app first. Use that promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That first deposit match up to $100. Locked On MLB. PrizePicks deposit match up to $100. Pick more or less. It's that easy with PrizePicks. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. Good to have you along here on a Tuesday morning. Some of you guys, boy, the traffic on 41. You all getting back from going up north, getting back to work. I get it. We're getting down to home. It's the dog days of August for not only Major League Baseball, but everybody else, man. I know it's a struggle. It's beautiful outside. You want to golf, you want to fish and all that. Yeah, we got Brewer baseball coming up next weekend at AmFam Field. The Brewers and Reds kick off a series. Got the Dodgers next week in a 4-game set. Huge. If we have any visions of catching the Dodgers, heck, we got to turn this thing around. I hope the Brewers can surprise me and take 2 or 3 in Atlanta this weekend. Got to turn this thing around. When you look at the pitching matchups starting on Tuesday, Tuesday's game, Arizona, I should say Atlanta, Chris Sale. We all know how tough he can be. Colin Ray on the hill, Still been looking for that 10th win for a while. He's on the hill for Milwaukee. So it's Ray and Sale coming up on Tuesday. Wednesday, Atlanta's got a TBA. They've corrected that. Charlie Morton is pitching for Atlanta. Freddie Peralta goes for Milwaukee on Wednesday. And then the afternoon game on Thursday, Montes against Schwellenbach for the Braves. Montes, that was kind of an uneven performance on Friday. I'm not going to read too much into it on the positive side or negative side with Montes' performances on Friday. He gave him some length. On the positive side, his first start, he gave the Brewers gave him some offense, and he gave them some length. That was the perfect scenario. But I really thought when they won that game Friday night in Washington, I thought, all right, going to go on and take 2 or 3 in this series. And then they played 2 duds to follow up. All right, that's going to do it for me. Hey, everybody, follow it. Google, Spotify, Apple, wherever you download your podcast, please find us and download it. Subscribe to us. We're here daily talking Brewers baseball. Man, we got about 50 games left in the season. We want you along daily talking Brewers baseball with you. And, of course, follow us at YouTube, our growing YouTube page. Search Locked On Brewers. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell. That'll alert you every time we drop an episode here on Locked On Brewers. Braves are not going to be easy. As you know, they're in the dogfight for a wild card spot. They're not catching the Phillies, but, man, they want to get the best possible wild card spot. So they want that number 1 wild card spot, so they are at home for that wild card series. Brewers there for 2 night games and a day game this week before coming back home on Friday against the Reds. So we'll see you all out there this weekend with the Reds in town. Until then, hey, man, let's get a nice off day on Monday. And the Brewers, who have dropped 6 of their last 8 series, let's get this thing back on track by winning game 1 in Atlanta on Tuesday. Follow me on Twitter, Chuck Freeman, Freimund. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Make your second listen now. When you're done here, go to Locked On MLB. My guy Sully's got all the baseball stories from the weekend and everything to catch you up throughout the week, heading into the new week on Locked On MLB. See you tomorrow night, everybody.